It's Godzilla! Actually, don't run. It's just a Godzilla video game. Something I think we can all agree is much more fun and much less destructive. This is Gojira, Bakutou Retsuden for the PC Engine CD. It was developed by Alpha System, published by Toho in Japan in 1993, and there actually was a US release in early 1994, which was published by Hudson Soft. But the US version is one of the more rare and expensive games for the system, which is kind of a shame because this is a game that I'm sure any Godzilla fan would really enjoy. There are only two gameplay modes in Bakutou Retsuden, single player and versus. In the single player mode, you can only play as Godzilla, and you take on a bunch of the other signature monsters from the series, one stage after the other, and you get to choose between two enemies per stage. One really cool feature is that Godzilla's appearance changes a bit depending on which monster you're fighting, in keeping with the era in which the battle took place. It's a small detail, but a pretty cool one, and one Godzilla fans would really appreciate. There's only so much you can do with a fighting game on a 2-button controller, especially when one of the face buttons is used to jump, leaving you with only one attack button. But despite that, you do have a range of attacks at your disposal, up to and including tail whipping and varying levels of atomic fire breath. All of the other monsters have their unique abilities intact as well, but you can only play as any of them in the versus mode, which is pretty disappointing. One feature in Bakutou Retsuden that was omitted from the US release is the trivia mode. Presumably because someone either just didn't want to bother with the translation, or they thought American gamers' Godzilla knowledge wouldn't be up to snuff. It's fun for a bonus stage. You're asked questions about the various Godzilla monsters, and you have a limited time to respond. This won't really be of much interest to those who can't read Japanese. I myself lose quite a bit in translation, but it is a cool feature nonetheless. After you've fought through all the other monsters, you'll have a final battle with some weapon the humans have cooked up to deal with you, and these little things can actually be a bit of a pain in the ass. But on the whole, the difficulty in Bakutou Retsuden isn't too harsh, and it's a pretty fun game despite its limitations. This is a pretty good looking game, most of the time. Some of the stages are pretty colorful with some nice details thrown in. Other monsters fighting in the background, for example, and there's some decent scrolling effects here and there. On the other hand, some of the stages are really plain looking. No real detail, no scrolling effects, just sort of a static image. The monsters look great though, and there are plenty of them. They're really well representative of the source material. The sound design is also kind of a mixed bag. While the sound quality is great, most of the music is much more subdued than I typically like in a fighting game. It's not terrible, but it's forgettable. The monster sound effects, though, are spot on, and they sound great here. Though the excessive use of the Godzilla roar can get a little bit grating. So this would be a nice addition to a Godzilla fans collection, assuming you have a PC Engine. The Japanese version usually goes for between 30 and 40 bucks though, which is a little steep, so I'd only recommend picking this one up to big Godzilla fans. The US version, like I said, is apparently really hard to come by. It typically goes online for between $250 and $350, and that's just crazy. If you really love Godzilla and you've already played the amazing games on the PS2, GameCube, or Xbox, and you're jonesing for another game to play based on the King of the Monsters, This would be a pretty good pickup for the right price, so by all means enjoy Gojira, Bakutou Retsuden.